The storm had swallowed his ship for nearly 3 hours before the signal cut through the static. A thin, trembling voice whispering coordinates no star chart had ever marked. Rian Calder stared at the screen, watching the same transmission repeat every 60 seconds. "Help, I am still here." He thought it was interference at first, maybe an echo of old war debris drifting through the system. But something about that voice, soft, almost human, made him hesitate before cutting it off. He rerouted power, punched the thrusters, and let his shuttle sink into the murky dust sea of an uncharted world. The storm below looked endless, a shifting ocean of copper and shadow. His sensors screamed warnings about magnetic anomalies and unstable pressure pockets, but he pushed through anyway. The moment he breached the lower atmosphere, his navigation feed blinked out. Static filled his comms. For a brief second, it felt like the planet itself was holding its breath. Then the coordinates reappeared on the hollow display, pulsing faintly like a heartbeat. He followed. When the ship touched down, visibility was near zero. Dust slid off the hull like waves, the wind screaming across metal. Rian suited up and stepped out, his boots sinking into fine red ash. He activated his visor light, scanning for wreckage, for a beacon, for anything alive. Then he saw her, a silhouette standing in the middle of the storm, motionless, waiting. Her skin shimmered faintly, like glass reflecting distant lightning. She didn't flinch as he approached. When he raised his weapon, she simply tilted her head. "You came," she said in perfect English. The words froze him. "Identify yourself," he managed. His voice filtered through static. She smiled faintly. "You heard the call. No one else ever does." Her name, she said, was Ira. She wore no protection against the storm, no visible tech, no breathing apparatus. Yet she stood there like the planet belonged to her. Behind her stretched the ruins of a massive city half buried in red dust. Collapsed towers, broken spires, and strange carvings glowing faintly beneath the sand. He had seen ruins before, but not like these. They felt recent, as if the dust had fallen overnight. Rian lowered his weapon slightly. "You said you're the last of your kind." Ira's gaze drifted to the horizon. "There were once millions. When the stars turned away, they left me to remember." Her tone wasn't bitter. It was quiet, almost resigned. Rian followed her through the remains of what looked like a temple, the walls etched with spiraling symbols. He recorded everything. "What happened here?" he asked. She paused by a crumbling pillar. "Your people did," she said softly. That made him stop. "Humans?" She nodded, eyes gleaming like reflected starlight. "Long ago, before your species forgot." Rian frowned. There were no records of human contact in this quadrant. No colonies, no missions, nothing. "You're mistaken," he said. But she only smiled again, the kind of smile that didn't believe in arguing. Inside the temple, the air was still, heavy with dust that shimmered in his visor light. There were carvings of two suns locked together, and between them, figures that looked unmistakably human. Tall, slender, holding hands with others that resembled her. He ran his gloved hand over the wall, feeling faint energy vibrations. "These can't be that old," he muttered. "They remember us," she said, standing beside him. "This place never forgets." He caught a faint flicker in her reflection on his helmet glass. Her pulse rhythm, displayed on his HUD, wasn't stable, spiking and flattening in strange patterns that didn't match any known species. "You're injured," he said, scanning. "I don't bleed the way you do," she replied. When he tried to analyze her further, his scanner glitched, throwing unreadable data across the screen. He tapped it in frustration. "That's impossible," he whispered. She turned, her expression suddenly serious. "Do not look too deep, Rian Calder. This world notices when you stare." He froze. "How do you know my name?" "I remember the ones who came before," she said quietly. "And they looked like you." Her voice carried an odd echo, as though others spoke beneath her tone. It wasn't natural. It was layered, multiplied. He took a step back, uneasy now, his hand brushing the grip of his sidearm. "Who are you really?" "I told you," she whispered, eyes glowing faintly under the temple's dim light. I am the last of my kind. Outside, the wind began to change pitch, rising to a low, harmonic hum that vibrated through the stone floor. Rian checked his suit sensors. Something massive was moving beneath the surface, deeper than his radar could read. He turned back to her, but Ira stood perfectly still, her expression distant, listening. They're stirring, she murmured. Who's stirring? The ones who slept, she said. Rian switched to his ship's long-range scanner, but all frequencies were jammed by the same rhythmic pulse that matched the earlier distress call. Only now it was louder, closer. It wasn't a transmission, it was a heartbeat. He lifted his gaze toward the temple archway where the storm howled outside. For a split second, between flashes of lightning, he saw movement. Shadows rippling through the dust, humanoid shapes gliding soundlessly across the ruins. He turned to Ira, but she wasn't looking at him anymore. Her eyes were fixed on those shadows, her expression unreadable. You shouldn't have come, she said softly. Rian's suit sensors started screaming. Multiple life forms detected all around them, surrounding the temple. He stepped forward, visor straining to focus through the haze, and then froze. The shadows weren't just moving, they were mirroring her. Each one identical in height, posture, and the faint shimmer of her outline. There weren't ruins filled with ghosts. There were echoes of her. And as lightning split the horizon once more, Rian realized with a cold certainty that she hadn't lied about being the last of her kind. She had just never said what kind meant anymore. Rian followed her through the ruins, the storm outside dulling to a restless whisper. Dust moved like mist around their feet, curling in patterns that almost looked deliberate, as if the ground itself were exhaling. The deeper they went, the more he felt the weight of the place pressing down, not just from the atmosphere but from memory. It was a city built by hands that understood beauty and grief in equal measure. Even in decay, its architecture felt alive. Towers grown instead of built, walls that shimmered faintly with dormant energy veins that pulsed like veins under pale skin. Ira walked ahead in silence, her bare feet leaving no prints in the dust. Every so often, she would stop to touch the walls, pressing her palm against the carvings, as if listening to something deep within. They still dream, she said softly. Dream, Rian echoed, his voice low inside the temple corridor. She glanced back at him, eyes gleaming faintly in the dim light. My people didn't die. They were undone. The city remembers what we were. Her words unnerved him more than he wanted to admit. His training told him to keep emotional distance, observe, record, report, but the longer he spent in that place, the less it felt like exploration and the more it felt like trespassing. They entered a wide hall whose ceiling had collapsed, allowing a single column of sunlight to pierce through the swirling dust. The light struck a mural carved across the far wall. Two suns orbiting one another, and beneath them, a dozen figures. Half were unmistakably human, the others, something else. Taller, luminous, Ira's kind. He reached out to brush off the dust, revealing a familiar insignia burned into the stone near the mural's base. A stylized eagle clutching 3 stars. His stomach twisted. That's impossible, he muttered. Ira turned sharply. You recognize it. It's a Terran command emblem. It's not possible. This sector was never charted, never colonized. Your records are written by those who survived, she said quietly. Not by those who were erased. The words hung heavy in the air. He wanted to deny it, to argue, but the logic didn't fit. How did she speak perfect English? Why did this place echo human design? He scanned the floor and found fragments of metal embedded in the sand. Human alloys, weapon fragments, and half-buried helmets corroded beyond recognition. His heart began to race. He crouched near one of the pillars and brushed away debris until something hard and translucent caught the light. A data crystal, old, maybe centuries, but intact. As he lifted it, the device pulsed faintly in his glove. It was encoded with human encryption. Ira's voice trembled. That doesn't belong here. He turned it over. The side was stamped with the same eagle insignia, and below it, an engraving, Project Ascendant, Restricted. Rian froze. He had heard whispers of ascendant, classified deep space experiments from humanity's first expansion era, long before the interworld accords. But those missions had been purged from every archive. He looked up at her. "What do you know about this?" Her expression tightened. "Enough to know it ended everything." Rian hesitated. "This could explain what happened. I can't just leave it." "Don't," she said sharply. But he was already sliding the crystal into his wrist link. His visor blinked, processing. For a moment, nothing happened. Just static and flickering lines. Then a faint hum filled the hall. Symbols on the walls began to glow, the dust vibrating with subtle rhythm. The air grew warmer, charged. Ira stumbled backward, her voice shaking. "You shouldn't have done that." Rian looked around as the carvings came alive. Twin suns pulsing in sync with his heartbeat. The mural figures began to shimmer, their outlines shifting as light bled from stone to air. His HUD went haywire, dozens of unknown energy signatures blooming all around them. It's reacting to the data," he said. "No," Ira whispered, her eyes wide. "It's recognizing you." The crystal flashed again, brighter this time. The energy crawling along the walls formed thin threads of light that connected from pillar to pillar until the whole chamber seemed to breathe. The hum deepened, a low vibration that made Rian's bones ache. He could feel the pulse through his gloves, the ground trembling beneath them like the heartbeat of something massive and ancient. "What's happening?" he demanded. Ira's face had gone pale, her luminous veins flickering under her skin. "The city is waking. You called it with your blood." "That's not possible. It's just data." "Data is memory," she interrupted, her voice trembling. "And memory here is alive." The walls shuddered. Across the ruined skyline, faint beams of light began to rise through the dust, each one pulsing in rhythm with the sound. Rian's comms cracked with static, then a distorted voice. His own voice, whispered through the channel. "Project Ascendant? Sequence incomplete." He turned in disbelief, scanning for the source, but the sound echoed from everywhere. Ira clutched his arm suddenly, her grip ice-cold. "They will hear us now," she said, eyes wide with terror. "Who?" "The ones who never left." The ground split with a groan that reverberated through the entire city. Dust cascaded from the ceiling as the hum deepened into a chorus of overlapping tones, thousands of faint, distant voices humming in unison. Rian's heart pounded as he backed toward the entrance. Through the storm outside, faint pillars of light erupted one by one across the ruined horizon, breathing in and out like the chest of some colossal creature awakening from centuries of sleep. He looked back at Ira, whose eyes now shone with the same light as the carvings. "You said your world died," he whispered. Her expression broke into something between sorrow and fear. "It didn't die," she said. "It's still breathing, and now it knows you're here." Rian switched on his recorder the moment he stepped out of the glowing temple. The storm had thinned into a low, static haze, but the air still trembled with a strange vibration that made every sound feel heavier. He crouched beside a broken pillar and adjusted the feed on his wrist link. "Commander, this is Calder, Expedition Theta 7. Coordinates unknown, possibly outside mapped quadrants. I've located ruins of a non-human civilization, but there's evidence of prior Terran involvement, repeat Terran involvement. Sending visuals now." He transmitted the feed of the glowing city, the mural, and the data crystal symbol. The signal bar blinked red. He tried again. Static. The pulse from beneath the ground made the transmission spike and fail. The entire band was jammed. He cursed under his breath and switched frequencies. Still nothing. Even the emergency distress channel was dead. The planet was muting him. Ira watched silently from the temple archway, her eyes distant, as though she could hear something he couldn't. "You won't reach them," she said softly. Rian exhaled, frustrated. "Every planet has a window. I'll find it." "This one doesn't want to be found," she said. He looked up sharply. "You're saying it's alive?" Her expression didn't change. "You felt it breathe." The thought crawled into his mind and refused to leave. He turned his visor toward the horizon where the beams of light still flickered faintly through the storm. The dust no longer blew randomly. It spiraled in subtle, rhythmic patterns around the ruins, like air currents shaped by invisible lungs. The readings on his HUD were erratic. Temperature fluctuations, seismic ripples, even electromagnetic waves pulsing in measured intervals. He started another scan, widening the range. What he saw froze his blood. "There's movement underground," he muttered. "A lot of it." Ira's posture stiffened. "How deep?" "Hard to tell," he said, fingers racing over his wrist controls. "Multiple sources. Hundreds, maybe thousands. They're not geological." Ira turned away, her voice trembling. "It's too soon." "What's too soon?" "The remembering." Before he could ask what she meant, the sand outside began to shift. At first, it looked like ripples from the wind, but the motion grew more deliberate, synchronized. The dunes trembled as if something vast was stirring below them. Rian backed up toward the temple steps, his weapon drawn. From the swirling dust, half-buried shapes began to emerge. Figures carved in smooth stone, humanoid but stretched and alien, their limbs long and their faces serene. They weren't scattered randomly. They were aligned in perfect circles around the ruins, as if standing guard. He counted a dozen, then 24. Each one pulsed faintly with inner light, veins of soft luminescence crawling beneath the surface. The statues were breathing. Rian raised his scanner again. Energy signatures, fluctuating. "These things are alive." "They're not things," Ira said, her voice breaking. "They're what remains." He turned toward her. She was trembling, her skin flickering between solid and translucent, light rippling beneath her veins. "Ira," her knees buckled, and she collapsed onto the sand. Rian rushed to her side, but she flinched from his touch. "Don't," she gasped. "They'll feel you." "Who? What are you talking about?" Her eyes rolled back slightly, her voice lowering to a whisper. "They never died, Rian. They just went below." The hum beneath the ground grew louder, vibrating through his boots. His scanner feed went wild. Multiple life forms, layered one on top of another, moving just beneath the surface. He switched to thermal imaging, but the heat map made no sense. The entire planet seemed to pulse with faint warmth, like a single, enormous organism. He opened a new log. Multiple unknown entities, possibly subterranean. Estimated depth 50 to 100 meters. Energy readings unstable. Movement pattern suggests. He stopped mid-sentence. The motion patterns on the display were coordinated, not random. They were forming symbols, geometric patterns identical to the carvings inside the temple. The wind shifted again, carrying a low, harmonic sound that made his chest tighten. It wasn't the storm. It was a voice or hundreds layered together. Words blurred into rhythm, impossible to translate, yet familiar somehow. His name whispered through it, stretched into the wind. "Rian." He froze, checking his comms. "Ira, did you hear that?" She didn't respond. Her hands dug into the sand, clutching it as if it were burning. "They're reaching," she whispered. "The ones who went below. They remember the surface now." He tried boosting his suit's shielding frequency, but interference spiked violently. The voice grew clearer in his headset. Not alien anymore. Human. His own. "Project Ascendant," it said in a perfect mimic of his voice. "Sequence incomplete." Rian's heart slammed in his chest. "Who's on this channel?" he shouted, spinning toward the horizon. The reply came instantly, still his own voice, but distorted like a broken recording. "You shouldn't have come," Rian called her. "You shouldn't have touched it." Ira lifted her head, her eyes wide with fear. "It's begun. They found a voice to use." Rian's mind raced. "You're saying they're using me?" "They remember the shape of your words," she said. "They can wear your voice like a shell." The ground convulsed suddenly, knocking him backward. Cracks split the surface, light spilling from beneath like molten gold. The statues shuddered, their faces shifting subtly, almost alive. One by one, their heads turned toward him. Rian scrambled to his feet, raising his weapon. "Stay back." Ira stumbled toward him, clutching her chest. "Don't shoot them. They're not awake yet." "Not awake," he echoed. "If you hurt them, they'll wake angry." A wave of dust swept through, and for a moment, everything went silent. No hum, no storm, just the sound of Rian's heartbeat hammering in his ears. Then his visor blinked with a system override alert. Unauthorized external connection detected. His suit's neural link flashed with static, and a new voice, softer, almost sorrowful, spoke through the comms. "We remember your kind," it said, overlapping layers of human and alien tones. "You came to steal the sky." Rian's breath caught. "Who are you?" The voice ignored the question. "We kept one alive to remember. She carries the seed." He looked at Ira, whose face had gone white. "They mean you," he said. She shook her head weakly. "No. They mean what's inside me." Before he could respond, the light beneath the sand erupted upward in a blinding surge. Energy spiraled around them, forming ghostly shapes. Tall figures of light and dust, flickering between solid and translucent. The air smelled like ozone and memory. Rian's systems went black for 2 seconds. When his visor cleared, the figures were gone, the hum fading again into silence. Only the statues remained, their eyes dim but open now, watching. Ira stood slowly, her breathing ragged. "They won't speak again until the heart wakes," she said. "What's the heart?" "The place where they merged," she whispered. "Where your kind ended us." Rian glanced down at his scanner. The last data feed before blackout had registered a massive energy cluster directly beneath them, large enough to be planetary scale. He turned toward her. "You said this world remembers. What does it remember about us?" She met his gaze with a look that was part sorrow, part accusation. "Everything." Then the sand beneath their feet shifted again, and his comm crackled with the same distorted tone. This time it whispered just one line, in his own voice, calm and chilling. "Welcome back," Rian called her. "We've been waiting for you." The descent felt endless. The air thickened as they moved deeper beneath the surface, and Rian's helmet lights cut through a haze of glittering dust that seemed to float of its own accord. The walls were smooth, carved not by tools but by precision energy, every line humming faintly with a rhythm that made his pulse quicken. Ira walked ahead, silent now, her bare feet leaving no trace on the metal floor. Her skin glowed faintly, like a candle flickering under translucent glass. The tunnel opened suddenly into a vast chamber lined with tall, glimmering spires. At first, Rian thought they were crystals. Then one moved. He froze. It wasn't a crystal. It was glass, no memory. Reflections shimmered inside each one, forming images that felt both alive and ancient. Alien figures with luminous veins stood beside humans in battle armor, exchanging something. Data? Energy? Trust? But the next scene turned dark. Explosions. Betrayal. Fire raining across the twin suns that hung above a dying world. Rian stepped closer to one of the mirrors. It pulsed, reacting to his movement, and the image sharpened. Human warships descending, their insignia unmistakable. Earth Command. He took a step back, voice low. "That's impossible. There's no record of humans ever reaching this sector before the Drift era." Ira didn't answer immediately. Her eyes were fixed on a single glowing shard that hovered above the center of the chamber. "Records can be erased," she murmured. "But memories, they have nowhere to go. They live in us, even when we forget." Rian approached the shard. As he did, the air grew colder, vibrating softly, and an image coalesced within it. A battlefield. Human marines firing into alien ranks. Screams of light and energy. And in the center, a single banner fluttered in the storm, marked with a crest he knew too well. 2 intertwined rings around a rising star. His family's symbol. He staggered back, shaking his head. That's a mistake. My great-grandfather served during the Outer Rim rebellions. Not this." But as he spoke, the shard responded to his voice, shifting to show a soldier removing his helmet. The face that looked back at him could have been his own. same eyes, same scar line above the brow. Ira stepped closer, her voice trembling but steady. Your blood remembers, Rian called her, and mine remembers yours. Something about her tone made his chest tighten. The reflections around them began to shimmer, replaying moments of intimacy. Humans and her kind working together, building cities, sharing light. A bond older than war. Why didn't anyone tell us this? Rian whispered. Why would we erase something like this? Ira's gaze darkened. Because you didn't win this war. You buried it. She touched one of the mirrored pillars. Instantly, the chamber reacted. The light dimmed, and from deep below, a distant hum began to rise, like machinery waking after centuries of silence. The vault trembled. The doors behind them sealed shut with a low, resonant boom. Rian spun, drawing his sidearm, though it was pointless. Ira, what's happening? She didn't move. Her voice was a whisper now, almost mournful. The vault doesn't open without purpose. It thinks we're ready to remember. The crystals pulsed brighter, and for a split second, Rian saw flashes. A human scientist embracing an alien woman under twin suns. An oath sworn between two species. A promise of unity shattered by fear. And then a code streaming across the walls in human script. The code was military grade, a shutdown sequence, but reversed. Rian's HUD began to glitch. My systems, they're being rewritten. Ira turned toward him, her expression unreadable. It's not rewriting you, Rian. It's restoring what was taken. His vision blurred. Images and words cascaded through his mind. Coordinates, names, orders, cries. His ancestors' memories flooding his consciousness as if the vault was stitching the past directly into his blood. He fell to his knees, clutching his head, gasping as fragments of another life invaded his thoughts. A command voice echoed in his skull. Purge the species. No witnesses. He looked up at Ira, horrified. We killed you. We killed all of you. Tears streaked her face, glowing faintly in the dim light. Not all, she said softly. Some of us hid inside the memory itself. A sudden cracking sound echoed through the chamber. One of the crystal pillars splintered, its light leaking like liquid. From the crack, shapes began to form, humanoid but transparent, flickering with images of past selves. Ira backed away, trembling. They're waking. Rian rose unsteadily, reaching for her. We need to get out of here. But the doors were fused shut, molten metal sealing every exit. The air grew thick, humming with psychic pressure. The ghosts, or whatever they were, began whispering in broken human words. Return what was promised. Rian's comms flared alive with static. Then a voice, command's voice. Calder, respond. We're reading massive energy spikes from your coordinates. What the hell did you activate? He stared at Ira, realizing what this meant. You sent that signal on purpose. You wanted me to come. She didn't deny it. Her eyes shone with regret. We needed someone whose blood remembers. The vault only opens to your line. Before he could reply, a beam of blue-white light shot from the central shard, scanning both of them. Symbols appeared midair, half human, half alien. It's merging our neural signatures, Rian whispered. What are you doing? Ira reached for his hand, trembling. Not me. The vault is choosing. Her voice broke as the beam brightened, engulfing them both. If it succeeds, neither of us will be the same again. The light grew unbearable, a roar echoing through his skull as the chamber shook like it was coming alive from beneath the planet's skin. He caught a final glimpse of her face. Terrified, beautiful, fading into the blinding radiance, before everything went white. When the light dimmed, the chamber was silent. The pillars stood still, but now, one glowed faintly with a human heartbeat. Rian's body lay motionless on the floor, eyes open, reflecting alien light. Ira knelt beside him, her fingers trembling as she whispered, Your blood remembers. And then his eyes flickered, but when they opened, they weren't entirely human anymore. The silence after the blinding light was almost unbearable. The vault no longer hummed with memory or movement, only a low, rhythmic pulse that felt disturbingly alive. Rian stirred, breath ragged, his vision swimming between two realities, one human, one alien. The air shimmered faintly, bending as though it too remembered something. When his eyes finally focused, he saw Ira kneeling near him, her face pale, her body trembling like she was trying to hold something back. He reached out, but she flinched away. Her voice came out sharp, edged with pain. "Don't touch me." Rian froze. "Ira, what's happening to me?" His voice sounded strange to his own ears, deeper, resonating with a faint echo. She stared at him as though looking through him, her pupils narrowing into thin bands of light. "You've been rewritten," she whispered. "The vault bound your code to mine. You are part of us now." He looked down at his hands. Faint lines of light pulsed beneath the skin, the same bioluminescent veins he'd seen on her people in the memory mirrors. "Part of you?" he said slowly. "Then maybe I can help you bring them back." Ira's expression hardened, and she turned away. "Help? You still think that word has meaning here?" She walked toward one of the cracked crystal pillars, touching its fractured surface. The memory inside shimmered to life, and this time it wasn't filtered or abstract. It was raw firsthand. Rian saw human ships piercing the skies, engines burning through clouds of dust. Massive drills tore into the planet's crust, pulling streams of radiant energy from glowing fissures that screamed like living things. The aliens, her people, ran, some reaching toward the light as if pleading for mercy. Human soldiers stood watch, cold and efficient. "Extraction complete," a voice said through a calm, "Initiate containment protocol." The image faded, leaving behind the smell of ozone and decay. Rian's throat felt dry. That can't be real," he whispered. "We would have known about this. It would have been in our archives." Ira turned on him, her eyes burning. "You did know. You erased it." She lifted her hand and pressed it to his chest, where his heart still pulsed with human rhythm. "Do you think we didn't try to stop you? We offered you the secret of the core, how to harness it safely. But your people wanted control, not balance. When the core destabilized, we begged them to stop. Instead, they left us to die and called it a failed colony." Rian's pulse quickened, guilt and disbelief warring inside him. "That was centuries ago. I wasn't there." Ira's voice cracked. "No, but your blood carries their code." Before he could respond, she stepped back, her body trembling. "You don't understand what that means, do you?" The chamber lights flickered, dimming until only the central shard glowed faintly. "When your ancestors built their weapon, the harmonic destabilizer, they bound it to their own DNA. Every human who descended from them carries a fragment of that command structure." Rian's chest tightened. "A fragment? You mean it's still active?" She nodded, tears glistening like molten light. "That's why the vault reacted to you. You weren't just a key, Rian. You were the trigger." The realization hit him like a blow. The tremor underfoot deepened, spreading through the floor like a heartbeat. "Ira, if what you're saying is true, we need to shut this place down before it." She cut him off with a look that mixed sorrow and fury. "Shut it down? That's what your kind always does. Destroy what you fear. You can't shut down a soul, Rian." The light behind her flared suddenly, and for the first time, he saw movement within the floor. Shadows, swirling and coalescing into forms that were neither fully physical nor fully light. They whispered in a language that his translator couldn't parse. The sound made the air vibrate. Ira sank to her knees, clutching her head. "They're waking," she gasped. "The ones who tried to ascend. The ones who failed." Rian knelt beside her despite her earlier warning, gripping her shoulders. "Tell me what to do." Her eyes darted toward him, wild with fear. "You can't help me. They remember your code. They remember you." He shook her. "Then tell me how to fix it." Ira suddenly shoved him away, hard enough to send him sprawling. Her glow brightened until her outline blurred, voice trembling with fury and grief. "There is no fixing what was broken. You came here carrying the same weapon that ended us." The ground beneath them convulsed, a deep, living sound that shook the chamber walls. One of the memory pillars shattered completely, releasing a burst of energy that rippled through the air like a wave. The light took shape, humanoid, translucent, its eyes glowing with cold intelligence. It looked at Rian and spoke in a voice that wasn't sound but vibration. "Return, the core." Rian stumbled to his feet, backing away. "Ira, what are they?" She stood trembling, her face illuminated by the rising light. "They are the ones who became the planet. Their minds never died, they merged into the neural field. I was their anchor, the last living bridge." The entity stepped forward, its form flickering between human and alien outlines. It extended a hand toward Rian, its touch grazing his arm like static. Instantly, a surge of pain tore through him, visions flooding his mind. Screams, collapsing cities, humans and aliens dying together, and then silence. He fell to his knees, gasping. "They're inside my head." Ira closed her eyes. "They see what you are." The voice returned, overlapping, thousands of whispers layered into one. "Human code, detected. Terminate anchor. Reset world." Ira's eyes widened in horror. "No, you can't." But before she could move, another tremor rippled through the ground, and the central shard above them fractured, releasing a spiral of light that shot upward into the ceiling, piercing miles of rock. The sound that followed wasn't thunder, it was breathing. The planet was inhaling. Rian grabbed Ira's hand. "We have to move. Now." She resisted, staring at the light. "If they wake, everything dies. Not just here, but everywhere this field reaches." "Then stop it," he shouted. Her gaze turned distant, haunted. "I can't. Only your code can." He stared at her. "What does that mean?" "It means the weapon that destroyed my world can end it again or save it. But if you use it—" She swallowed hard, her voice breaking. "You'll die, Rian. Your blood will burn itself out." The light intensified, the floor cracking open in lines that glowed with molten energy. He heard faint voices inside his head, human and alien both, calling his name. He turned to Ira, her silhouette shimmering in the chaos. "Tell me what to do." Her eyes filled with tears. "I already did. You just don't remember yet." The floor gave way beneath them. He reached for her, their hands almost touching. Then the ground exploded in a surge of white light that swallowed them whole. When the dust settled, the vault was silent again. The lights dimmed to a faint pulse, and at the very center of the chamber, where they had stood, only a single mark remained burned into the floor. The symbol of two intertwined rings around a rising star, glowing faintly in the dark. The air burned with static as they emerged from the collapsing vault. The tunnel above them had become a canyon of glass and molten rock, lit by veins of blue energy crawling through the walls like lightning frozen in motion. Rian could barely breathe. Every step felt heavier, like the planet itself was resisting their presence. The deeper they went, the more alive the stone seemed. It pulsed faintly, timed with the rhythm of his own heartbeat. Somewhere below, a sound like a slow, enormous breath echoed through the earth. Ira moved ahead, her glow dimming and flickering. "It's close," she said, her voice thin. "The heart, the core of my world, where your people first touched the light." Rian followed, his scanner screaming with radiation warnings, but none of his readings made sense. The air wasn't toxic. It was dense with structured energy, almost like code. "Ira," he said quietly, "this place, it feels aware." She didn't turn around. "It is aware. It remembers everything that ever happened on its surface. Every death, every promise broken." The tunnel opened into a colossal chamber that seemed to defy geometry. The walls curved inward and outward at once, reflecting endless versions of themselves. At its center stood the core, a colossal crystal engine suspended in midair, rotating slowly, humming like a living heart. Light moved through it in waves, each pulse echoing across the chamber like a voice too vast to hear. Rian's HUD immediately lit up with a cascade of data streams, ancient human encryption patterns, long abandoned before his birth. Reactor core identified. Project Descendant, level Omega. He frowned, scrolling through the information. Project Ascendant? That can't be real. That's pre-drift technology. Ira stepped in front of him, eyes wide with fear. Whatever your people called it, it killed mine. Don't go near it. He raised his hands slowly. I'm not trying to hurt it. I just need to understand what it's doing. But the moment he spoke, the crystal shifted its rotation, and a deep vibration rippled through the air. His HUD blinked red. Reactivation sequence detected. Wait, what? Rian muttered, tapping at his console. I didn't. Ira spun toward him, panic rising in her voice. You touched nothing, but your blood did. It recognizes you, Rian. It thinks you're one of them. The entire chamber ignited in cascading lines of light. Holographic patterns emerged in midair. Ranks of soldiers in antique human armor, their visors glowing with synthetic blue eyes. They stood motionless for a heartbeat. Then one stepped forward, its voice resonant and mechanical. Project Ascendant, sequence resumed. Human genome confirmed. Directive reinstated. Rian stumbled backward, his weapon shaking in his hand. No, shut it down. Abort. But the holograms didn't respond. Instead, the core flared brighter, flooding the chamber with unbearable light. Energy surged down into the ground, splitting the rock like a wound opening in the planet's flesh. Ira screamed, clutching her head as her glow intensified. You brought them back, she cried. They were never supposed to wake again. The sound beneath them grew louder, thousands of overlapping heartbeats. Rian looked down and saw cracks spreading in the floor, light spilling out like molten gold. Figures began to rise from the fractures. Glowing silhouettes shaped like Ira's people, but their movements were jerky, unnatural. Half of them shimmered like ghosts. The other half gleamed with metallic fragments fused into their forms. Their eyes glowed a cold, empty blue, the same color as the human holograms. Rian's pulse spiked. Ira, what are they? Her voice broke. They're my people, what's left of them. The ones who tried to ascend through the core when it collapsed. The core didn't let them die. It turned them into this. The holographic soldiers began to chant in unison, voices blending with the pulse of the core. Phase convergence achieved. Hybridization complete. Rian turned toward Ira, desperate. There has to be a way to stop this. She looked at him through tears that glowed in the light. It's too late. The core thinks you're activating the final stage of Ascendant. It's rewriting reality, merging everything that still remembers. The ground shook violently, sending dust and fragments spiraling through the air. The spectral figures rose higher, their hands reaching for the crystal heart, their voices merging into a deafening resonance that made Rian's bones ache. He stumbled forward, clutching his head, flashes of alien memories searing his mind. Screams, flames, the sky cracking apart, his ancestors shouting orders he could now understand. Then, amid the chaos, the holographic commander turned toward him and saluted. Welcome home, Commander Calder. Rian froze. What did you call me? Project Ascendant's final overseer, the hologram said. Reintegration complete. Ira stared at him in horror. No, you can't be. I'm not. Rian shouted, backing away, but the core pulsed again, and his veins lit up beneath his skin. Not blue like the humans, not gold like the aliens, but something between. The hybrid glow spread through him until his whole body vibrated with the rhythm of the core. Ira tried to reach him, but a surge of energy forced her back. The holograms turned their faces upward, chanting again. Ascension Protocol initiated. The core roared to life. Energy beams shot upward through the ceiling, tearing through miles of stone, breaching the planet's surface. From far above, light pillars erupted into the sky, piercing the dust storms like lances of divine fire. Across the barren world, the dead began to rise, millions of spectral bodies flickering into being, half memory, half machine, answering the core's call. Ira screamed over the thunder. Rian, if it completes the sequence, it will consume everything, every memory, every life. The whole planet will become a single mind. Rian tried to speak, but his voice fractured into static. The core's pulse was inside him now, rewriting his words into commands. He staggered, eyes burning with light. I can't stop it, he gasped. It's using me to finish what they started. Ira reached through the blinding glow, her hand trembling as she pressed it to his face. Then fight it. Don't let it use you like it used them. For a brief moment, something human flickered in his eyes again. Confusion, guilt, love. If I fight it, he whispered, I might kill you. She smiled faintly, tears streaming down her luminous cheeks. Then at least you'll save what's left of me. The ground split open with a deafening roar. Thousands of glowing figures, her people, rose from the earth, their voices blending into a single, endless cry that echoed through the ruins and out into the stars. And above it all, the core pulsed one last time, bright enough to erase the horizon, before the chamber collapsed into pure light. The air inside the core chamber shimmered with light that was not light, a hum that was not sound. Rian could feel it in his bones, a rhythm older than stars, pulsing beneath the surface of the world. Around him, the awakened ones rose from the sand like memories taking shape. They weren't flesh anymore. They were patterns of light suspended in the air, each moving like a ripple through time itself. And all of them were looking at him. Ira stood between them and the core, her body trembling as the luminous forms drifted closer. Their eyes glowed the same hue as hers, soft and sorrowful. Then, in perfect unison, they spoke, 1,000 voices merging into one that resonated like a heartbeat. Keeper of the seed, they said. The cycle resumes. Rian's pulse quickened. What cycle? He demanded, his voice breaking through the static hum. What are you talking about? Ira turned to him, her eyes distant, reflecting the glow of the core. They were never gone, she whispered. They became the planet. Every storm, every whisper in the sand. It was them, waiting for a new mind to open the gate. And that mind was me? He asked, barely believing his own words. She nodded. You carry the key. The human genome, it still holds the code they left behind. The weapon wasn't just meant to destroy us, Rian. It was meant to preserve what came after. Rian shook his head, stepping closer to the core. The holographic soldiers flickered into view again, spectral figures of ancient humans in battle armor, their faces expressionless, their forms fractured by time. They stood shoulder to shoulder with the glowing beings, as if reality itself had merged two timelines together. The soldiers spoke in unison, their voices echoing like a command from centuries past. Project Ascendant synchronization phase complete. Memory integration commencing. Ira's scream cut through the light. No, you're rewriting us. The luminous beings faltered, their shapes flickering violently. Rian could see pain rippling through them, as though each was being forced to remember something that wasn't theirs. The soldiers' holograms reached out, merging with them, human data and alien essence intertwining until neither could exist separately. Rian ran to Ira, grabbing her shoulders. How do I stop this? You can't, she said, her voice breaking. It's what they built you for. Every human descendant carries the activation line. You were always meant to finish this, to fuse our worlds. That's not fusion, Ira. That's erasure. Her gaze snapped up to meet his, and for the first time, he saw the fear behind her calm exterior. Not for herself, but for him. If you stop it now, Rian, I die with them. I'm their anchor. Their memories live through me. The ground shook violently, sending cracks across the crystalline floor. The core pulsed brighter, filling the chamber with blinding light. Rian's visor overloaded, static rippling across his HUD. There has to be another way, he said, shielding his eyes. A way to separate the systems, to... Listen, she cried, grabbing his hand and pressing it against her chest. Beneath her skin, he felt a rhythm. Not a heartbeat, but something deeper, like the pulse of the planet itself. Do you feel that? It's not mine. It's theirs. I was never truly alive in the way you think. I'm the memory they gave form. The realization hit him like gravity returning after a dream. "You're not real." Tears streamed down her face, glimmering in the light. "I was. Once. Before your kind came." Rian staggered back, shaking his head. The ground split open behind him, revealing vast tunnels glowing with bioluminescent veins, rivers of memory coursing beneath the planet's crust. Through them, he could see entire civilizations replaying like echoes of the past. Cities rising, ships burning, the moment the weapon fell. A child's laughter, a woman's scream, the silence after extinction. Ira's voice trembled. "Do you see now why I lied? Why I said I was the last? You wouldn't have helped me if you'd known what I truly was." Rian clenched his fists. "You manipulated me." "I guided you," she corrected softly. "Just as they guided you here. You're part of it too, Rian. Every decision you made brought us to this point. You could have turned back. But something inside you wanted to understand." He looked at the soldiers again, those pale ghosts of his ancestors. "They wanted control. I want truth." The light around the core intensified. Symbols spiraled in the air, ancient and human both, interlocking until they formed a single sigil. Two intertwined spirals glowing with equal force. His visor translated the symbol automatically. Unity Protocol. Rian stepped forward. "What happens if I trigger it?" Ira's eyes widened in horror. "If you do, the human data merges completely with the planetary consciousness. Every memory, every lie, every death, fused into one truth. The planet will live again, but not as it was. It will remember everything." He hesitated. "And you?" Her smile was heartbreak itself. "Then I become what I was meant to be, their voice, their guide, the part of them that still remembers love." The ground quaked again, violently enough to knock him down. The light beings screamed without mouths, their forms twisting as the integration neared completion. The holograms of soldiers began to fade, their final words echoing through the storm of energy. "Ascension complete. Humanity preserved." Rian crawled toward the console at the core's base. His gloves sparked as he tried to interface, overriding the command line. "I won't let them overwrite you." Ira knelt beside him, placing her hands over his. "It's not about me anymore." "Then tell me what it is about," he shouted. She leaned in close, her forehead touching his. "It's about remembering who we both were. Not enemies, not gods, just survivors." The core's light engulfed them both, waves of energy rippling through the chamber. Rian's systems began to fail. His armor temperature spiked. Through the glare, he could see her face, serene, almost peaceful. "Ira," she smiled faintly. "Do you trust me?" He hesitated only a heartbeat. "Yes." Her fingers brushed the console, and in that instant, Rian understood. She wasn't stopping the process. She was completing it. The core surged with white fire, and for a moment, the world seemed to breathe. Every grain of sand above, every ruined spire, every dormant circuit pulsed as one. Then silence. Rian awoke on the surface, buried halfway in the dust. His suit was dead, his comms silent. The storms had cleared. Above him, the twin suns burned bright in a blue sky, a sky that shouldn't exist on a dead world. He staggered to his feet, looking around. The ruins were gone. In their place stood crystalline structures reaching toward the heavens, humming softly. The planet was alive. "Ira," he whispered. The wind answered in her voice. "We remember." He turned, spinning in place, searching. "Where are you?" "I am here," she said, her tone neither human nor machine. "Everywhere. Within the sand. Within you." He looked down at his hand. Faint lines of light pulsed beneath his skin, the same hue as her eyes. "You said you'd die," he whispered. The chamber trembled as Rian stood before the pulsing heart of the world. The air shimmered like liquid glass, rippling with each slow, rhythmic beat from the core. He could feel its energy tugging at the edges of his thoughts. Memories that weren't his, voices whispering through his neural link like echoes from another life. The planet was alive, awake, and waiting for him to decide its fate. Ira's voice came from everywhere and nowhere. You can't hold it back much longer. The merge is already beginning. Rian turned toward her. She stood a few meters away, glowing faintly in the dust-filled light, her form flickering between solid and spectral. Her outline wavered like a candle about to go out. There has to be another way, he said. If I overload the core, maybe I can shut it down before. Before what? She interrupted gently. Before they remember what we did to each other? He hesitated. The hum of the chamber grew louder, vibrating through his armor until it rattled his bones. Above them, massive veins of energy coiled across the ceiling like lightning trapped in stone. This isn't just about you and me, Rian, she said softly. It's about all of us, what your people did, what mine became, and what we could be if you let it happen. He stepped closer to the console. The human interface symbols glowed faintly beneath layers of alien script. Two systems, human and not, bound together in ways neither side ever understood. If I trigger the purge, I destroy everything. But if I let it complete, you'll disappear. She smiled faintly, though her voice trembled. No. I'll finally become what I was meant to be, memory. Rian clenched his fists. You deserve more than that. So did my people, she whispered. For a moment, the silence between them was heavier than the storm above. Rian reached into the console's terminal, his gloves sparking as he began interfacing manually. Lines of code burst across his visor, endless human encryption protocols mixed with alien neural pathways. It wasn't just a machine. It was consciousness, both theirs and his. His HUD flashed red. Neural link detected. He hesitated, then muttered under his breath. Sometimes mercy ends wars faster than vengeance. It was something his grandfather used to say, a line from a war documentary he'd watched as a boy. Back then, it sounded like a slogan. Now, it was the only truth he had left. He exhaled, pressed his fingers to the port on the side of his helmet, and connected the neural link directly to the core. The moment contact was made, the world shattered. The hum became a scream of light. The walls dissolved into swirling fragments of memory. He wasn't in the chamber anymore, he was inside the network. Every thought, every emotion, every forgotten truth of two species poured into him like a flood. He saw the beginning, humans landing on this world under twin suns, shaking hands with beings of light who believed in peace. He saw shared cities, shared dreams, shared skies. And then the fear, the suspicion, the first weapon fired in panic. The first betrayal disguised as protection. He felt it all, not as history, but as pain. 1,000 voices screaming as ships fell from the sky, as cities burned, as light itself turned against them. Then he saw her, Ira. Not the woman before him, but the child she once was, watching her world crumble, watching her mother become light to escape death. He saw the first humans leave orbit, leaving behind promises and ruins. The core whispered through him, its voice both human and alien. You carry their blood. You carry their guilt. Rian's neural link flared with static. His nose bled. His vision dimmed. The overload was tearing his mind apart. But even through the agony, he forced himself to speak. No more lies. No more separation. Merge them. The system hesitated. Then, in the silence between pulses, Ira appeared beside him. Not as light this time, but as a memory walking through memory. What are you doing? She asked, her voice echoing in the void. I'm rewriting it, he said, barely holding consciousness. No purge, no reset, just truth. You'll die, she said. He smiled faintly through the pain. Maybe that's the price. Her expression softened. Rian. He looked at her one last time, his voice cracking. If they remember, maybe they'll forgive us. The core reacted instantly, light spiraling outward like a nova. The code fractured, then reassembled, rewriting both systems simultaneously. Human and alien memories fused, not as conqueror and victim, but as one shared history. Love and war, creation and destruction, all preserved in a single living record. Rian's armor systems began to fail. Warnings flashed red across his visor. Neural link collapse. Cardiac failure imminent. Ira reached for him, her form flickering wildly. Rian, stop. Disconnect. He couldn't hear her anymore. The sound of the core drowned everything out, a thunderous pulse that consumed thought itself. His eyes glazed as he felt his heartbeat stutter, then fade. For a moment, everything went quiet. Then, through the silence, a single pulse, faint, steady, growing stronger. Light poured out from the planet's surface, streaking into the sky like veins of fire. Across the dunes, the ruins began to shift. The shattered structures rose, rebuilt themselves. Statues reformed, glowing softly. The air shimmered as if the world had exhaled after holding its breath for centuries. And at the center of it all, Rian's body lay still at the heart of the core, eyes closed, expression calm. Ira knelt beside him, her hand trembling as she touched his chest. Beneath her fingers, a faint pulse beat once, then stopped. Tears fell, turning to light as they touched his armor. You were never meant to stay, she whispered. But you gave us back our name. The core responded to her words, glowing brighter. Across the planet, the awakened ones rose again, not as weapons but as caretakers. Their forms flickered with traces of human silhouettes. The two species had merged, reborn as something neither side had ever imagined. The wind carried a voice, his voice, through the chamber. Ira. She turned, eyes wide. For an instant, she saw him, not in flesh, but as a shimmer in the air, a memory made of light. He smiled. Guess mercy does end wars faster. Then he was gone, dissolving into the light. Ira stood alone, surrounded by the glow of a reborn world. The core hummed quietly, calm now, alive, but no longer dangerous. The storm outside had ended. She stepped to the edge of the chamber and looked up through the fractures above, where the twin suns burned softly through the dust. Rest now, she whispered. We'll carry your memory. The wind brushed against her like a familiar hand. She closed her eyes and let the silence embrace her. Far above, in orbit, the wreckage of Rian's ship drifted past the planet's dawn. Its systems flickered one last time, a beacon activating automatically. A single message was transmitted into the void, repeating over and over, carried on endless waves of static. This world remembers. Humanity was not alone. And somewhere, light years away, someone or something was listening. The signal faded into the cosmic noise. The planet glowed beneath twin suns, alive again, its memory pulsing with every breath of wind. And buried deep beneath the surface, in the heart of the core, two names shimmered across the crystal surface, written in both human and alien script. Rian Calder, Era of the Light, and below them a single phrase, forgive us, remember us, begin again. The storm had ended. For the first time in centuries, the sky above the dust planet was clear. Twin suns rose through thinning clouds, casting soft golden light across the once-buried city. The sand no longer howled. It shimmered, as though bowing before something sacred. The planet was breathing again. Ira stood at the edge of the chamber where Rian had fallen. The core pulsed with steady rhythm, glowing softly beneath layers of crystal. Each pulse carried warmth that she could feel in her chest. Familiar, gentle, alive. She whispered his name. Rian. The core responded with a faint shimmer of light. A voice drifted through the air, soft as the wind. You're not the last anymore. Tears gathered in her eyes, but she smiled. His consciousness, his essence, was everywhere now. She could feel him in the hum of the structures, in the rhythm of the planet's pulse, even in the way the light filtered through the air. He wasn't gone. He had become the bridge he promised to be. When she stepped outside, the city was no longer ruins. The architecture had reshaped itself. Alien spires twisted upward, merged seamlessly with human design, forming towering structures that glowed from within. The streets pulsed with a slow heartbeat, and in the distance, the great towers of her ancestors rose once more, gleaming beneath twin suns. She walked among the newly awakened forms, beings of light and code, part human, part of her kind. They looked at her not as a queen or a keeper, but as something else entirely, the first of a reborn world. They moved with quiet purpose, rebuilding, healing, remembering. Some knelt as she passed. Others simply smiled as if they, too, could hear his voice in the air. Ira closed her eyes, focusing on the hum of the wind. "He did it," she whispered. "You really did it, Rian." A breeze brushed her face, warm and alive. "We did." His voice answered faintly through the air, carried on invisible waves of resonance. "You showed me what we could be." For a while, she simply stood there, watching the city breathe. It felt fragile, like a dream trying to remember itself after centuries of silence. The core beneath the surface pulsed in sync with her heartbeat. The world was stable. Life was returning. And then, far above, something flickered in the pale sky. She looked up. Tiny silver points of light pierced through the atmosphere. Faint, rhythmic, deliberate. It wasn't starlight. It was artificial. Her smile faded. She knew that pattern. Every surviving member of her kind remembered it. A transmission. Human. Her neural link trembled with interference. Then came the voice. Metallic, cold, unmistakably human. "This is Earth Command Reconnaissance Signal Delta 7. We have detected planetary reactivation. Coordinates match classified quarantine zone. Prepare approach vector." Her breath caught in her throat. The wind stilled. The hum of the planet deepened, sensing her fear. The beings of light around her stopped, their eyes turning upward as the twin suns reflected off metallic shapes descending through the atmosphere. She whispered the words like a curse. "They're coming to finish it." The signal repeated, stronger now. "Command to Fleet Ardent. Authorization confirmed. Objective: recover lost technology. Secure hostile remnants. Eliminate resistance if encountered." Ira's hands clenched. Resistance. The word tasted bitter. They still thought this world belonged to them. The nearest being, a luminous figure with faint human features, turned toward her. "What does it mean?" She looked at it, her expression calm but her eyes full of storm. "It means the past is coming back." As the ships entered the upper atmosphere, trails of plasma streaked across the sky. The ground trembled with their approach. The planet responded instinctively, the core's pulse accelerating, spreading waves of energy through the terrain. The air shimmered with invisible fields, the same ancient defense system that had once torn fleets apart. But Ira didn't want another war. Not now. Not after everything Rian had done. "Stop," she whispered to the core, touching the ground. "Don't fight them. Not yet." The tremors eased. The light dimmed slightly, awaiting her command. She could feel the consciousness of the planet waiting for her signal, like a child waiting for its mother's word. Her gaze turned skyward again. The fleet grew larger, colossal vessels shaped like iron blades, human insignias painted across their hulls. They had come chasing a ghost signal, unaware of what waited below. Ira spoke softly, to no one and everyone. "Rian, what do I do now?" The wind moved around her, whispering through the new towers. For a moment, it almost sounded like his voice. "Show them what mercy looks like." Her throat tightened. "And if they don't understand?" A pause, soft static, gentle and uncertain. "Then make them remember." The light around her pulsed once, strong and bright, like a heartbeat. The beings nearby bowed their heads. Ira closed her eyes, focusing her thoughts through the neural field that connected her to the planet. She could feel the orbiting ships, their scanners piercing the surface, their weapons humming to life. Deep within the core, she sensed Rian's presence. Calm, guiding, waiting. His voice came faintly again, a whisper within her mind. "Don't let them fear you. Let them see themselves." She raised her hand. The surface of the planet shimmered. Massive structures began to rise. Spires of glass and steel, human and alien blended into breathtaking harmony. From orbit, the fleet scanners would see not a weaponized wasteland, but a city alive with light, a civilization reborn. "Transmit a signal," she told the network softly. "All frequencies." The planet obeyed. A pulse of energy swept into space, carrying her voice through every channel. "This world remembers," she said. "And we forgive you. Come and see what you left behind." Silence followed. Then 1,000 human voices filled the static. Confusion, shock, disbelief. "She's speaking Terran Standard. Is that a simulation? Command, confirm source. Is that human architecture?" Ira's eyes shimmered. "Yes," she whispered, though they couldn't hear her. "You built it too." But even as she spoke, she sensed something darker. Deep within the fleet's command frequency, buried orders crackled through, an override cold and efficient. Fleet Authorization Code Sigma 9. Prepare orbital strike on unknown AI presence. Primary directive, containment. She felt the heat of their reactors ignite, the faint tremor of weapon capacitors charging. Her heart broke. After everything, after Rian's sacrifice, after centuries of silence, they still came with fear in their hands. The beings around her looked skyward, awaiting her word. The air vibrated with tension. The world itself waited. Ira whispered, "Rian, I don't want to fight them." His voice came faintly in her mind, steady, gentle. "Then don't. Make them remember what humanity means." She took a long breath and stepped into the open square at the city's heart. The light of the twin suns fell on her face. Above, the sky darkened as the fleet entered attack formation. Every instinct screamed for her to defend, to unleash the planet's power and erase the threat before it began. But she didn't. She stood still, palms open, eyes lifted to the heavens. "Please," she whispered, "see what you've done, and what you could be again." The first energy beam began to descend, a line of white light slicing through the clouds. The ground trembled. The city's towers flared with energy. The beings of light gathered around her, hands raised in unison, forming a barrier of shimmering resonance. The beam struck and vanished, not reflected, not absorbed, transformed. The light spread outward, wrapping the city in radiance. The humans in orbit watched their weapons dissolve harmlessly, replaced by a broadcast signal echoing across every frequency. It carried not words but memories, images of Rian, of their shared past, of the moment Mercy ended the war. In their ships, human officers fell silent, tears streaming down faces hardened by generations of command. In the center of the city, Ira whispered to the sky, "You're not the last anymore." And far above, among the stunned silence of the fleet, one transmission came through, faint, cracked with emotion. "This is Captain Alara Calder of the Fleet Ardent." A pause. "Standing down. We hear you." Ira closed her eyes as the voice echoed through the winds. The fleet stopped its descent. The light around her dimmed, soft and peaceful. The planet exhaled. The war that had never truly ended finally did. But deep within the core, beyond light and sound, something still moved. Faint, rhythmic, alive. A heartbeat. Rian's heartbeat. The core pulsed once more. The world listened, and the light whispered, "Begin again." The sky over Ardia burned with quiet colors. Not flame, but rebirth. The dust storms had finally cleared, revealing the twin suns rising side by side, their light shimmering across towers of glass and living stone. The air carried a hum, soft and alive, the sound of a planet breathing again. Ira stood on the edge of what had once been ruin, now reborn in shifting hues of blue and gold. Around her, the people, if they could still be called that, walked with steps that left trails of light. Half flesh, half memory. They moved as if every gesture sang with the echoes of the past. They were not only her kind anymore. They were human, too. She could still feel him. Rian Calder. His presence wasn't a ghost or a thought. It was rhythm, current, pulse. When the wind moved, it spoke in fragments of his voice. When the new cities formed, the light carried his code. Every circuit hummed, every crystalline flicker whispered the same message through the network. "You're not the last anymore." For days after the merge, Ira had tried to separate his consciousness from the core. She had sat within the pulse of the planet, her hands pressed to the crystal surface, begging for him to answer in words rather than vibrations. But all she heard were memories. His laughter from another life, the way he once hummed an old Earth song while repairing his ship, the sound of his breath when he first saw her and didn't speak, just stared as if she were both a miracle and a warning. Now those moments lived on in everything that grew here. Above, the silence broke. A faint tremor rippled through the air, followed by the metallic whisper of an orbital burn. The stars blinked, then multiplied. Ira looked up, her expression calm but her pulse quickening. The fleet had come. 1,000 ships, sleek and silver, descended through the thinning clouds, their insignias marked with the emblem of the unified human command. They formed an iron horizon, their formation perfect, predatory. The planet, once forgotten, now glowed with an impossible energy signature, something humanity could never ignore. At the heart of the new city, Ira waited beside the crystal obelisk that now served as the planetary core's interface. Around her, hybrid beings gathered silently, their eyes glowing faintly with both human blue and alien gold. None of them spoke. They only watched the sky darken under the shadows of descending ships. When the first landing craft broke atmosphere, Ira closed her eyes. He will remember what he was, she thought, her fingers brushing the faint scar on her wrist. The mark Rian left when he took her hand for the last time before connecting his neural link. If they remember, he'd whispered, maybe they'll forgive us. The ship landed with a roar that shook the glass towers. From its hatch stepped men in reinforced armor, their visors glowing, their weapons humming faintly. At their front was a man with silver hair and a gaze that had seen too many wars. Admiral Corin Vale. His boots crunched against the luminous ground as he approached her. Identify yourself, he commanded. Ira looked at him with calm, unblinking eyes. Her voice was soft, melodic, almost human. I am Ira of the Keepers. I was once the last of my kind. Now, I am one of many. Vale's gaze flicked over the city behind her. We detected a reactivation, a military code, Project Ascendant. That project was terminated centuries ago. What have you done here? Ira's lips curved slightly. Not a smile, but something sadder. He finished what you began. Vale frowned. Who? She lifted her hand, and the obelisk beside her shimmered. For a moment the light bent into a shape, tall, human, familiar. Rian Calder's face appeared within the glow, his eyes open but distant, like the reflection of someone dreaming. His neural signature pulsed through the scanner on Vale's wrist. The readings spiked wildly. That's impossible, Vale muttered. He's alive. Ira nodded once. Not as you understand it. His body ended when he connected to the core. But his mind, it merged. He became part of the weave that keeps this world alive. The Admiral stepped closer, lowering his weapon unconsciously. The hum of the fleet's orbiting ships filled the silence between them. You're saying he's integrated into the planet? Yes, she said simply. He carries your memories now. All of them. The war, the betrayal, the lies you buried beneath your history. Vale's jaw tightened. You don't know what you're talking about. Humanity left this sector after the expansion wars ended. That conflict was ancient. And yet you still bring weapons, she said quietly, her gaze drifting toward the hovering fleet. Still ready to finish what your ancestors began. For a moment, neither moved. The wind shifted, carrying faint whispers in Rian's voice, distorted but clear enough to pierce through Vale's helmet. Don't make the same mistake. Vale froze. His men did too. Ira took a step forward, her glow brightening, faint strands of light running along her arms like veins of starlight. If you destroy us, she said, her voice trembling with something like grief, you destroy what's left of him. Vale's hand trembled around his weapon. The weight of command pressed down on him. Years of training told him to contain, to neutralize, to eliminate threats before they grew. But when he looked into Ira's eyes, he saw not an enemy, but memory. A reflection of his own kind, his own world mirrored and changed. He exhaled slowly, lowering his weapon. No one else dies here today, he said. Above them, the fleet shifted formation. Energy weapons powered down. The twin suns rose higher, bathing the land in warm gold. Ira's expression softened. She reached out her hand, and Vale hesitated only a second before taking it. The light rippled outward from their touch, connecting through the air like threads of living energy. Around them, the hybrid beings bowed their heads, their eyes glowing brighter, as if acknowledging a long-awaited peace. "Then let him rest," she whispered. Vale looked at the obelisk again. Rian's image shimmered, his eyes flickering open for a final instant. A faint smile touched his lips before he dissolved into light, spreading across the city like dawn. Decades later, the story of Rian Calder and Ira of the Keepers became legend. Children of both races grew up under shared suns, speaking two languages that eventually became one. The archives called him the human who remembered, the man who carried both guilt and hope into eternity. Some said the planet itself hummed his name whenever the wind blew through the crystal towers. Others believed he still whispered to Ira, somewhere deep within the core, where consciousness and love were the same thing. And sometimes, on clear nights when both moons rose high, travelers claimed to see a figure of light walking beside a woman made of starlight across the dunes. Two silhouettes moving together in eternal silence. No one could ever prove it, but everyone who saw it swore the same thing. The light remembered,